A historic winter storm is coming to the United States over the next couple of days, and this is going to dump a lot of snow to areas that hardly ever see snow, including areas like Texas, back along the Gulf Coast of the United States, into areas like Florida, and even over in the Carolinas, where there is a potential for several inches of snow and as well as ice that could cause major travel impacts for several days. But there's also been a big change to the forecast over the last few days. So in today's forecast, we're going to break down exactly what you need to know about this winter storm and who it'll be impacting, and exactly how much snow and ice you can expect in your area. We'll begin with what's happening across the country right now, and we have a streaming area of moisture that is moving across Florida and the Gulf of Mexico. This actually did bring a couple of isolated severe storms yesterday to Florida. Overall, the cold frontal boundary has now passed through. It is much colder now in Florida, and in a moment I will show you how much colder it actually is compared to the rest of the country, and you'll be pretty surprised by the temperature gradient across Florida. And then back over in the Northeast, we just had a big winter storm move through yesterday. This dumped a lot of snow to areas like New England and then back over into the mid-Atlantic region. And the good news is that we are done with the snowfall in the Northeast, aside from areas like Lake Ontario and Lake Erie, which will continue to see some lake effect snow both today and tomorrow. And then back over in the central and southern plains, no winter storm yet, but that's going to form tonight as moisture out of the Gulf of Mexico merges with some snow that's actually going to be falling in the central and southern plains throughout the daytime today. And once this merges, we are expecting a historic winter storm. And the coldest weather of the season has officially arrived to almost the entire country. There are some areas waking up right now to wind chills as low as 50 degrees below zero. It is just frigid out there. If you are going outside, make sure you're bundling up. Frostbite definitely a strong possibility this morning. Wind chills also sub-zero even into Alabama and Georgia. But over in Florida, it is currently 60 degrees in Miami. This is the only place in all of America right now that is at least feeling like above 50 degrees. There aren't really any other areas, maybe back over near Los Angeles, but even then it's kind of a stretch. There's only maybe one spot there. So the only place, if you want warm weather right now in the entire country, is either southern Florida and maybe Hawaii. That's literally the only two places. It's actually crazy how cold it is right now across the entire country. Now, for the most part, the Northeast winter storm is done. Nothing really remaining there, but we do have a new winter storm that is going to be forming late today in the southern plains, and we have plenty of winter storm watches and warnings in effect. And again, now is the time to prepare if you are in a winter storm watch or warning. Winter storm warnings are now in effect for much of southern and southeastern Texas, including the Houston metro area, southern Louisiana, and even parts of southern Mississippi now included in that. And then winter storm watches in effect for areas like central northern Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, most of Georgia, into the Carolinas, and the first time in 11 years that we have winter storm watches in effect for the northern Florida panhandle. And if this is not an indication of how rare this winter storm is going to be, I don't know what would be an indication. This is just an unbelievable sort of thing that we are seeing here. It's really a once-in-a-decade type winter storm. Now let's dive more into the timing of this winter storm and exactly where we are going to see the biggest impacts, and also where this is going to leave a big mark when it comes to historic snowfall. Beginning with what's happening out there around lunchtime today, there will be some light to moderate snowfall moving across Oklahoma, Kansas, and the northern Texas panhandle. There actually are winter weather advisories in effect across these areas to basically accompany for the fact that we are going to see a coating to a couple of inches of snow. This is going to be moving south and southeast, and then we have a band of moisture that's going to move into southeast Texas as we go later into the afternoon hours. And once these two areas collide, look at the ripple effect here. We are actually going to have a large band of freezing rain and normal rain as we go into the overnight hours tonight. And you might be wondering, where's the snow? Well, you're going to see it here in a second, but I do want to point out that ice is going to become a much higher likelihood as we go into the overnight hours tonight across parts of southern Texas and southeast Texas, and then back into Louisiana. This is going to cause some major travel impacts because a lot of these roads are not going to be treated. So if you have to, travel tomorrow, definitely want to make sure that you are aware that there could be some major travel impacts and you might not be able to drive very well on the roadways. Right around sunrise on Tuesday, that's when the heavy snow really starts to kick up back over near Houston and then back into central and southern parts of Louisiana. Freezing rain and sleet will be happening right along the Gulf Coast, including areas down into southern Texas. And then eventually, as we go closer to lunchtime on Tuesday, heavy snow is really going to be ramping up in southern Louisiana. We are talking about a historic amount of snowfall that'll be falling in southern Louisiana, southeast Texas, and southern Mississippi. That heavy snowfall will be right along the Gulf Coast, even going into the afternoon hours. And then eventually around dinner time, all of that snow will be moving in the direction of Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. I know that's kind of crazy to say in the same sentence, snow and as well as as Florida, but it is going to become a reality as we go into late Tuesday night. Now, this is how much snowfall is going to be possible out of this winter storm. I do want to preface that these numbers are quite high. It is a more aggressive scenario, but I do think we're going to see a widespread area in southeast Texas, just outside of Houston, into southern Louisiana, including the New Orleans area, between 2 to 5 inches of snow, but we could easily have some spots well over that. I think 8 to 10 inches of snow in a couple of isolated locations is very possible with this winter storm, given the magnitude of how heavy the snowfall is going to be and how quickly it could stack up. Even though it's a short amount of time, it is very possible, even though that this is along the Gulf Coast. I know these numbers sound a little crazy here, but it is very possible. But also keep in mind that this is a very confined area. It is not covering, again, an entire state. This is only really for southern Louisiana and southeast Texas with this amount of snowfall accumulation. Now, you may also notice that this area of snow is not that large. We are talking about a winter storm that is going to be very confined to the Gulf Coast. I do want to point out, though, that there are some winter storm watches a bit further north. Couple of reasons why. One, I don't think the HRRR model does a great job of showing that there could be a coating to maybe an inch or two further north. And then two, there will be freezing rain, which would lead to ice accumulation. And then eventually that would basically translate to there being a winter storm watch / warning. And that's why that's happening. But again, I want to preface here that this is a very different forecast than a couple of days ago. Initially, this winter storm looked like it would be way further to the north, including areas like Dallas, Fort Worth, maybe back into northern Louisiana. That's not necessarily the case when it at least comes to the snow portion of this. We aren't really expecting a whole lot of snowfall in those areas anymore, which is, again, why there's just been such a big shift here to the forecast. And now going wide view with this winter storm as we go throughout the day Tuesday, again, the heaviest snowfall will be confined to the Gulf Coast. Notice far southern Texas will have a transition from pure rain to freezing rain, which will lead to ice accumulation. A little bit of snow even back over near the Mexico and Texas border. As we go late into Tuesday and early Wednesday, freezing rain and snow will arrive to the Florida Panhandle, including areas like Tallahassee. They will begin as freezing rain and sleet, which will create ice, and then we are going to go right into snowfall, so make sure your flip-flops are ready to go, because that's all you're probably going to have. I don't really think many people even have winter jackets in northern Florida. I personally don't, and I live in Florida, so just letting you know that. As we go into late Tuesday night into early Wednesday morning, sleet and freezing rain will continue even as far south as Jacksonville, Florida, and then eventually as we go into the morning hours, again, right around sunrise, that freezing rain and sleet will continue. We do think that there will be at least a little bit of snowfall along the Carolina coastline, including South and North Carolina. Exactly the intensity and how long that snow lasts are still uncertain, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We're going to have another update more than likely later today, if not tomorrow morning, breaking down that possibility, a bit more detail in case there are any changes to the forecast. And then eventually throughout the day Wednesday, that's moving out, and there could even be some snow back over in the Great Lakes region as we go throughout the day Wednesday and as well as into Thursday. Here are the probabilities of seeing greater than 1 inch of snowfall out of this winter storm. It's basically a 100% chance now around the Houston metro, southern Louisiana, southern Mississippi, back into the Florida Panhandle, and a small sliver here of Georgia. There is still a chance if you're just to the north of Jacksonville there near the Georgia border, but overall it's a relatively lower chance. It's a very sharp line there between a 100% chance down to even a 10 to 0% chance. So just keep that in mind. Here's the probability of greater than 3 inches of snowfall, which would be a much more significant winter storm. Highest probabilities in southern Louisiana and southeast Texas. And the probabilities are actually up there, even back over in parts of Florida there. And then also a slightly lower chance now compared to only a day ago back over in the Carolinas. Again, this winter storm has been tracking more and more to the south over the last 48 hours, which is why there has just been such a major change to the forecast here over the last 48 hours. This is the chance of seeing greater than 6 inches of snowfall. I don't entirely agree with this probability overall, but I think the best chance of this happening would be in central southern Louisiana, just to the west there of New Orleans. And then overall, the probabilities are still there along the east coast. It's just a very low chance now. I think it's definitely still in play if this winter storm does end up tracking a little further to the north and is a little bit larger in size, but the chance of that happening has been decreasing for the last 48 hours. Now, here's how much snow you can expect out of this winter storm. I think that this is a general idea. I'm going to show you another graphic in a second that's going to be more reasonable, but this is kind of where we're talking about for a middle to high ground scenario, meaning that this is going to be a bit more of an aggressive approach to this forecast. Many areas in southern Louisiana likely to see 3 to 6 inches of snowfall, including the New Orleans area. In and around Houston, we are also expecting around 3 to 5 inches of snow. This is where a lot more question marks remain. Exactly how much snow we're going to be seeing in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina, it's going to depend on the track of this winter storm. By tonight or tomorrow morning, we're going to have a much better idea of exactly how much snow is going to fall in this area. But so I don't get your hopes up. This is a much more realistic forecast for the time being for all of these areas. Again, 2 to 4 inches in Louisiana with some spots near 6, and then back through Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina, according to a couple inches. In terms of how much ice we can see, most areas are not going to see much more than a 100th of an inch of ice, but areas like southern Georgia and northern Florida have a chance of seeing a bit more significant ice accumulation, perhaps as high as a 1/10 of an inch of ice, which would again be really significant on the roadways. And then overall a 100th of an inch of ice possible across much of Texas and then back over in the East Coast. Again, this might not seem like much, but it is very significant because even the slightest bit of ice accumulation will cause major travel impacts on the roadways. So make sure you're taking it slow out there, and if you have any travel intentions, I would, again, delay or cancel those on Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on where you are here across the southern plains or even back over into the southeast. And we'll keep you posted with the latest. We may have a video later today. If not, we'll have another one tomorrow morning breaking down the latest on this winter storm. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel and as well as like the video.